Hello, everyone. Hello down there, Dick Sparks. Can everybody hear us? Way back when? Looks like we've got a crowd around, probably be around 90 or so. That's amazing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monroe County History Club. Hello to my wife, Paulette. There she is again. And there you are. And I usually have some cousins, Bernie and cousins, and I don't see them here today. Maybe they'll be here later. If you're there, raise your hand. Bernie, Penny? Ah, there you go. And Nat. Okay, good. Today marks our 9-year anniversary. We've been doing this since 2013. Yeah, that's pretty good. In February 2013, 6 people met in a small room at the library on a rainy Tuesday, the last Tuesday of that month, to talk about local history and show old newspaper clippings, photos. Besides me, there were Donna Stogstill, Shelby Kaiser, Sarah Robertson, Skip Chambers, and George Carpenter. That's the day I had to give this group a name, because they made me down at the library. So I came out, first I thought of Bloomington History Club, and I thought, nah, it's more than just that. So I made it Monroe County History Club, because it entails more than just our town. So it sounded descriptive enough, so that's what it is. The next month, we decided to come to the Legion, and then we met at the Blue Room, which is a small room as you come in over there. The group began to grow little by little, and after a few months, we started having guest speakers. We soon moved to this room as our attendance grew to about 20 per program. Things really changed then when George Carpenter gave our first PowerPoint program. Up to then, people would just read from a paper. There would be no pictures. We found out that video or images are really the way to go, and George gave the first one. And that changed things again. His program was on the Monon Railroad, which was a popular thing. Crowds kept growing still, and things changed again in November of 2015 when Cats TV agreed to record all our programs. For the last over 6 years, they've been recording these programs, and they televise it on their station, and then we're able to upload it on YouTube. So we have about 60 past programs on YouTube, and that's something we're pretty proud of. We've had crowds as large as 120. We never thought we'd have enough subjects or speakers to have monthly presentations, but eventually found out that many talented historians are from this area. We're typically scheduled a year ahead now, and we used to go month by month by the seat of our pants. They've ranged from programs on quarries, stone quarries, to barns, to RCA, to railroads, to Lake Monroe, to photos from the HT archives, and on, many other stuff. What Cats TV has allowed us to do is have each excellent program preserved for all to see in the future. If someone years from now wants to find out about particular subjects, people and places from our rich past, they can access it at the touch of a finger. And that's what I like. It's always going to be here for people to access. So thanks to everyone who's ever spoken here. Thanks to the Legion, thanks to Cats TV, the History Center, the Monroe County Public Library, and of course to the great audiences, the great following we've had over the years. Hopefully we can continue this for a long time and maybe get the recorded programs up to 100 if I live that long. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And of course, thanks to Cats TV for being here again. Thanks to the Legion for all the support we get. Be generous with our servers. They're working hard today because there's a big crowd. Are there any first-time attendees? Anybody that haven't been here before? Yeah, there's one. We have a regular emailing list because a lot of you aren't on Facebook. I advertise on Facebook a lot, but we have a direct mailing list for those who want to be contacted directly. So if any of you want to leave me your email address, just leave it with me. We don't sell it to somebody else. There's no ads on there. We just report the coming programs. So you can leave with me if you want. As of right now, Daniel Schlegel of the History Center would like to make a statement.
Thank you, Michael, and congratulations on 9 years. I think that's fantastic. I think that's a really impressive accomplishment. So congratulations to all the founding members and all the supporters for all of this. I just wanted to touch base really quick We do have some of the books on the Showers Brothers. I'm very excited for Dr. Stuckey's presentation. I have heard so many amazing things about this book. I just have more books than I have time to read, so I have not gotten to this one yet, so I'm very much looking forward to the presentation. Unfortunately, our backup shipment is stuck somewhere in a shipping center, so I have 4 copies of the book left, but if you are interested, we do have a notepad and pen, so we can get your name and number. You can prepay for your book and everything, so as soon as they arrive, you can just swing by the History Center, pick yours up, and off you go. Or you can look around. We're okay with that as well. But I did want to let you know we did try to get a new shipment of books in, and they thwarted our best efforts, so I do apologize. So do not fret if you do not see any more of these. Just let us know, and we'll be happy to get your name and number for when they do arrive. And I did bring a very similar book about the Hoosier Cabinet. I was told that this is not a part of Showers, but it was a very interesting story. But Dr. Stuckey does not have time to talk about both, so if you want to read another interesting story, we do have those. And we just put up an exhibit about Gail and Bill Cook and a lot of their renovation work that was done, especially in Monroe County. So there's several books about that, but it's a brand new exhibit that went up, I think 2 weeks ago or so. 2 weeks ago. I lost track of time. So please feel free to come out and see the new exhibits. And then the very last thing I have is we are very lucky that next month the speaker is actually going to be one of our own. Hillary Fleck, our collections manager, is going to be the speaker. So we are very excited about that. So hopefully she'll get a nice big crowd as well next month for her presentation. So I'm going to turn it over, but we'll be over here where we normally are. So feel free to come by and say hi to us or take a look at the books or anything. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Daniel. Just a quick rundown of what we've got coming up here. And we're scheduled all the way through till next January, I think. Like he said, Hillary Fleck of the History Center will be our next presenter, March 29th, on the history of women in politics in Monroe County. April 26th, Dr. James Madison, who I've been trying to get come here for a long time, is going to give a program called Ku Klux Klan in the Heartland. He's written a book about that, and this guy's a very well-known historian. May 31st, John Baton, another IU professor, has a program called Reconstructing Bloomington. What would it have looked like walking through Bloomington in 1907? Sanborn fire maps are utilized to give an idea of what old Bloomington looked like. To me, that sounds pretty fascinating. On June 28th, Dr. James Capshew will return to do a program called The Life and Times of Herman B. Wells. July 26th, Derek Ritchie, who's been a frequent presenter, will return to do a history of the Laboratoe and Hunter mansions, which are up on 10th or 11th, 12th Street, 11th. And were torn down in the 70s, I think, early 70s, yeah. August 30th, John Summerlot, another professor at IU, another return speaker, will give a program called Arbutus Mania. He told me about this, and I had no idea what he meant. And this swept Bloomington and IU in the early 1900s, spawning the yearbook name Arbutus, among other things. I'll be learning with you what the heck this is about. So, September 27th, Brad Cook, the head of IU Photo Archives, will return to show many vintage photos of Bloomington. October 25th, Hillary Fleck again will be here to show some pictures or some highlights from the Herald Times Photo Archive collection. The Herald Times gave them all their negatives to go through and scan, and they could show whatever they want. We've been doing that with an early period. They'll probably start around 1970. We did that. Some people have probably seen them a few times here ourselves with an earlier part of the year. Let's see, it's October. November, Marge Favorite, who's been here many times, is going to give a program on the history of local post offices. That'll be in November. She can't wait to do it. December is open right now. We'll get it filled up, I'm sure. And on January 31st, this is a little interesting, a little different. Al Parker, a wildlife biologist, will give a program on the history of the bald eagle reintroduction into Lake Monroe. So I don't know much about that. It should be interesting. That brings us to today. Today we welcome Clay Stuckey, veteran presenter for the History Club. He's going to give a program on a subject that has been on my wish list for a long time, the history of the Showers Brothers Furniture Company. So, Clay? There you are.
I got a question. I had on my calendar Thursday, the 24th, the library giving a class on Underground Railroad. I think there's something up there. Is that the Monroe County?
Before I begin, I'd like to pay tribute to Carrol Krause, who wrote the book Showers Brothers Furniture Company, The Shared Fortunes of a Family, a City, and a University. She gave a program about her book years ago to this group, back when it was but a handful of people meeting in a much smaller room here at the Legion. I didn't even know the group existed, and certainly Cats TV was not recording the talks. Years later, after it had become so popular, and Cats TV was recording the talks, Mike asked her to give it again. She was in failing health and said she was just too sick to do so. Shortly after that, sadly, she died. Last year, I volunteered to give this program on the history of the Showers Brothers Furniture Company based on her book. Although I never knew Carrol, after multiple readings of her book, I have grown in appreciation and admiration of her as a writer and historian. Her book is an excellent read, and she makes the case quite well that the history of Bloomington and the history of the Showers family and its furniture company are so intertwined that you cannot understand the one without the other. For today's program, all the maps except two are mine, and I have added several pictures that are not in her book. But all the information and scholarship are Carrol's. I am only the messenger, and to her belongs all the credit. And now we begin. If you were to ask a person about my age, that is to say, old, who was born and raised here in Bloomington, what does the name Showers mean? I think he would say that it was supposedly the largest furniture factory in the world, located just to the east of North Rogers Street in a bunch of factory buildings with a sawtooth roofline, sitting empty for decades, periodically parts of which would either burn down or be razed, and finally a part of which would become our city hall. We are all acquainted with the late Bill Cook and his family and their outstanding contributions to Indiana in general and Bloomington in particular. Well, those contributions are still ongoing. I think Carrol's book justifies my impression that the Showers family, in its own way, made comparable contributions to the improvement of the quality of life here in Bloomington, and yet those contributions remain mostly unknown. That is sad. We have forgotten our history. The Showers family deserve better. Think about this as you listen today and see if you agree. In 1856, Charles Christopher Showers, always known as C.C. Showers, arrived in Bloomington with his wife, Sarah Elizabeth, and their 7 children. They had married in Coudersport, Pennsylvania in 1836, and beginning in 1838, they had moved at least 15 times in 18 years before coming to Bloomington. C.C. was a Methodist circuit rider, although it is not known if he was ever officially ordained. After coming to Bloomington, he preached for a time in a Baptist church before returning to Methodism. He was also an entrepreneur and businessman and was a cabinet worker well versed in working with modern machine woodworking tools. That skill he passed on to his two eldest sons, William and James. The genealogy of the Showers family is complex and made confusing because the people tended to go by their middle names. Starting with C.C., there are 3 generations of the Showers family in our story. Those involved in running the company are in red, and those performing significant community service are underlined. Of course, several did both. We don't know the reason or reasons that C.C. came to Bloomington, or even specifically why he moved the family so much. The family wasn't poor, but nor were they rich. Certainly it is safe to say that C.C.'s aspirations outweighed his ability to succeed in business. Showers had operated a grocery store with a man named Mercer. By 1860, he had partnered with a man named Moffett and was making and selling bedsteads on the east side of the square. Then Showers and his son-in-law, James Hendricks, began making furniture also on the east side of the square. In 1864, they rebuilt that building, but no sooner was it completed than it burned. They rebuilt. Later, Showers and Hendricks was on the south side of the square. The business was expanded when Showers and Hendricks partnered with John F. Kimbley and opened a branch in Vincennes. Soon, the Showers and Hendricks business in Bloomington collapsed amid a flurry of at least 10 lawsuits, and the Vincennes operation was taken over exclusively by Kimbley. The bankruptcy of Showers and Hendricks was official in 1869. It was in the Showers and Hendricks firm that William and James honed their skills at woodworking that they had acquired in their youth from their father. The details of the business arrangements during this period are not entirely clear, but it is probable that William and James became full partners in the Showers and Hendricks firm, and when the legal problems mounted, they bought out their father's interests in 1868 and became the owners of a new firm called Showers and Brothers. C.C. had been the founder of the clan of Showers in Bloomington, but he was not the founder of the Showers Brothers Furniture Company. That role was performed by his two eldest sons, William and James. Certainly 1868 was the date always reckoned by the family and the company as the beginning of the Showers Brothers Furniture Company. Meanwhile, C.C. and Hendricks had bought the Bloomington House Hotel and renamed it the National Hotel. It was on the north side of Kirkwood, 1/2 block east of the square. It was more of a boarding house than a hotel. After about a year, C.C. and Hendricks had to sell out for financial reasons, and Hendricks tried his hand at several other short-lived enterprises. The National Hotel survived at least until 1953, when we see there the parade celebrating the IU NCAA national champs. Then, starting in the 1870s, C.C. began working for his sons as a traveling salesman. In 1882, he would be hit and killed by a train in Greencastle. Starting early on, from time to time, William and James took on additional partners, but when not partnering with anyone, the business was called Showers and Brother. Although the 4 Showers sisters did not directly participate in the functioning of the company, their husbands and or their children had employment and profited in some way from the brothers' firm. At some point, William and James decided they were not interested in manufacturing furniture for the retail trade or in operating a furniture showroom as Showers and Hendricks had done. Instead, their new goal was to mass manufacture wholesale furniture to sell in other cities. William was in charge of production, and James was in charge of obtaining orders. By 1876, the brothers had made their mark. The factory was specializing in bedsteads. James was an officer in the Oddfellows, and William was elected to the brand new city council, and in 1878 served on the city's finance committee. James was to follow him on the council later. It was the beginning of a lifetime commitment to community affairs of both men. The brothers were always extremely close, as indicated by their building identical houses next door to each other on North Walnut Street. Neither has survived. In their later years, they also had country estates up in the northwest corner of Bloomington Township that were partially adjoining, although it's not known whether or not their houses there were identical. In 1878, the much younger of the three Showers brothers joined the firm as a full partner. Although his name was Charles Hull Showers, he was always known as Hull or Hully. He was 18 years old and may possibly have used money inherited from his mother, who died that year, to buy into the partnership. He was married the following year to Maud Ella Coatney, who was a 16-year-old daughter of a prominent landowner and farmer. She was to play an extremely important role in the future of the company as well as in the history of Bloomington. After she joined the firm, it was known informally as the Showers Brothers Bedstead Factory. The firm of Showers and Hendricks had bought land in what was later to be Grant and 9th Street, and in 1869, William and James bought it from them. Prior to this, the manufacturing of the furniture had been done at the various locations on the city square. But with this purchase, it moved to the outskirts of the town, and a wooden factory was erected. We must note here that this location for the Showers factory was different from where it later became along Rogers Street. In 1881, the original structure was rebuilt in brick. It was 3 stories tall with a metal roof. Hiram J. Nichols was the architect, and he and his son John were to become the architects for 2 generations of Showers. And John eventually married into the family. In the 1870s, the company had specialized in making bedsteads. In 1881, a new chair factory was built on the northeast corner of 9th and Grant Streets. It was 3 stories tall. The company always employed both black and white workers. It built workers' cottages in a mixed neighborhood later known as Bucktown, between North Dunn and North Grant. This began a long-time effort to buy land and develop it to provide affordable housing for workers. Eventually, both brothers helped to launch the Bloomington Building and Loan Association. Evidence for the good relations of the Showers family and black people in Bloomington, in addition to the hiring of them at the factory and building houses for them, can be seen in the obituary of C.C. Showers. It wrote that he was especially a friend to the colored people and was much beloved by them. Other obituaries of prominent people in Bloomington make no mention of colored people. Aside from the Bucktown area, the brothers and the Building and Loan Association were involved in developing South Park, located at the southern end of Walnut Street, which was Bloomington's first housing addition. Then came Fairview in the northwest and Kenwood on North College Avenue. In 1882, Greencastle invited the company to move its factory there, and later Evansville promised to build 2 large brick buildings on 5 acres of land if the brothers would move the plant there. These offers were refused, but it reflects on just how successful the company was becoming. In 1882, the brothers organized a company union with dues of $1 a month that would create a fund that would pay benefits to employees injured on the job. A 5-day work week was offered to employees who could meet the 6-day production goals, and vacation days could be earned by workers who met certain production goals. Both brothers were against unions, and they made an agreement with their employees that if the company did not join the manufacturers' union, the employees would keep out of the non-company labor union. The workers agreed, and the company had no labor union troubles for over the next 50 years. An interesting tidbit of company history involves William Shaw, who began working for Showers when he was only 12 years old. 40 years later, he was still working there and had become a superintendent. He was the first employee to hold shares in the corporation and eventually served on its board of directors. In 1884, the chair factory burned to the ground. It was rebuilt on a new location between Madison and Morton Street. It was a blessing in disguise because it allowed the company to build a bigger facility closer to the railroad. There were 3 new buildings. The north building was the factory machining building, the middle was for finishing and varnishing, and the lower building was for warehousing and shipping. 2 months after the fire, they were in business again. Note that it is not yet along Rogers Street. In 1886, Hull died at the age of 26. He left his wife, Maud, 1/3 interest in the Showers company, and that made her one of the richest women in Bloomington. William and James did not try to buy her out, but immediately made her a full partner. She would remain an integral part of the business for 26 years. After the company incorporated, she served as vice president of the board of directors. She became one of Bloomington's most prominent women and was an active suffragette and traveled to state and national meetings of the movement. She arranged for Susan B. Anthony to come to Bloomington to speak. Through the local council of women, she worked to beautify the public square. When William and James formed the Bloomington Real Estate Association, Maud became the first woman to address a Bloomington business organization. In 1912, Maud was married for the 3rd time. The first husband, as we recall, died, and she divorced her second one. She then, in 1912, divorced herself of her ties to the company. She sold her shares in the corporation, but remained active on the hospital board and was intimately involved in a campaign to get a Carnegie Library for Bloomington. It was built in 1918. Maud Showers did more than anyone else in Bloomington except for James and William to make Bloomington a better place than it originally was. Here we see the original home of Maud and Hull. In the 1890s, it was sold to another, and significant remodeling occurred. The site is now the parking lot for the History Center. Upon Hull's death, William took his place on the board of the Young Electric Company, and James took his place on the new Waterworks Committee. Dodge Chair Factory was located just east of the old Showers factory, and it had not burned in 1884. It had been 1/2 owned by the Showers brothers. In 1892, they bought out Dodge and moved the factory. to an area northwest of the Showers factory. And here we see that location superimposed on a modern map. And here we see it in a genuine 1905 map. William, James, and Maud now own two separate factories. Charles T. Showers, James's son, took over control of the chair factory and was assisted by Sanford Teeter, who had married William's daughter, Nellie. That became known as the North End Furniture Company. Charles died at the age of 26 in 1896, and while Teeter labored on, the factory was closed in the later 1890s and absorbed into the larger Showers factory along Morton Street. In the beginning of the 1890s, the Showers began to diversify their financial holdings. In addition to their ever-growing real estate, they began a savings and loan company. They purchased buildings in purchased holdings in several limestone companies, including starting the Central Oolitic Stone Company directly across Rogers Street to the west of their factory. They invested also in the Star Quarry, the Matthews Stone Company, and a series of quarries at Hunter Valley, which is the quarry field that's located at the intersection of Highway 46 and I-69. That's Rogers Street going east and west at the bottom of the picture. They also invested in a downtown department store run by their friend, W.W. Wicks. In early 1890s, the Shower factory employed about 190 workers, and the table and chair factory employed another 50. The nationwide depression that began in 1893 affected all businessmen, including the brothers, but their outside investments protected them personally, and the furniture factory stood idle more often than not between 1893 and 1896. The Showers women were instrumental during the 1890s in improving the town. William's wife, Hannah Lou, James's wife, Belle, James Hendricks' wife, Ellen, and original Showers' sister, Maud Showers, and the younger generation of William's daughters, Jenny and Nellie, and James's daughter, young Maud, all played substantial roles. The Showers women served on the Cemetery Association, improving the cemetery to the west of town, which had fallen into a sad state of repair. They were responsible for enlarging the cemetery by buying land, building a small cottage for the sexton, building a graceful archway at the entrance, covering the roads with crushed stone, arranging for the grass to be mown, and installing a decorative fountain in the center of the grounds. They were the ones who renamed the cemetery Rose Hill. Along with other women of the community, they were involved in beautifying the city by planting trees everywhere, including on the courthouse lawn. Brick streets had made a problem of sanitation critical, as horse manure and urine around the hitching racks no longer was absorbed into the dirt streets. The city would do nothing to clean it up. The ladies took the issue to the State Board of Health. A court case resulted, which the ladies won, and the city was forced to finally start cleaning up the mess on a regular basis. Soon it was forced to clean up other streets throughout the city. In 1899, the company was incorporated, and all the stock was held by members of the Shower family and P.K. Buskirk, a wealthy Bloomington businessman. In 1900, dividends were 10%. In 1901, 45%. In 1903, 50%. All the dividends were plowed back into the company in improvements or were carefully invested in profitable ventures outside of the furniture factory. William lobbied successfully to get a new railroad into town that would result in east and west connections. The Illinois Central was the result. Monon Railroad already ran north and south. James and William helped found the Citizens Loan and Trust Company with partners Ira Batman, P.K. Buskirk, and Fred Matthews of the Matthews Brothers Stone Company. James invested in coal mines in Greene County. And just to give you a feel for the socioeconomic level of these movers and shakers in Bloomington, here are the homes of Buskirk and Batman. Mr. Buskirk's home on North Walnut has survived. As has Judge Batman's on West Kirkwood. The Matthews home on North Walnut has not survived. Both brothers had devoted themselves to solving Bloomington's ever-present problem of having a lack of water. They were directors in the Bloomington Waterworks Company. When that company proved to be a disaster, including the superintendent absconding with the money, the brothers disassociated themselves with this venture and started anew. With other wealthy and influential men, the brothers and later the company itself were involved in every expansion of Bloomington's water supply, from Twin Lakes through Leonard Springs and finally Griffey Reservoir. In 1903, the 62-year-old James Showers resigned from the company and sold his entire interest and stock to his brother William. He stepped down as a director on the board and completely divested himself of any remaining connections with the company. William became president and Maud became vice president. He did continue his involvement in the Savings and Loan Company, the school board, and the telephone company. By 1905, stockholders multiplied as other family members joined the board. Maud Showers' son, Earl Showers, was the manager of the Sears Roebuck and Company department, which now accounted for a significant part of the factory output. Sears would continue to be an important customer. Earl's sister, Beryl, joined him as a stockholder and would remain as such to the bitter end. Sanford Teeter, William's son-in-law, along with other city councilmen and prominent businessmen, suggested a new courthouse. When the county commissioners agreed, James Showers was appointed to the committee to assist them in selecting an architect. In the early 20th century, the Showers Company was entering its golden age of growth, prosperity, and recognition. William's two sons-in-law, Sanford Teeter and Joe Smith, became general business manager and first assistant, respectively. W. Edward Showers was William's son and became the general manager of production. Earl Showers managed the shipping department. Dividend ranged from 3% to 12% annually. The two largest stockholders were William with 36.6% and Maud with 23.4%. That comprised 60% of the company's stock. W. Edward Showers and Sanford Teeter owned 10% each. Beryl, her brother Earl, and Joe Smith held 5% or less. The company would always remain a closely held family business. In 1904, the company added veneering to its production capability. This helped save on the amount of the best wood used and therefore saved the company money. By 1905, the company was the third largest of its kind in the United States and employed about 300 men. If you remember, Maud was the widow of Hull, the much younger brother of James and Williams, who had died young. From 1903 to 1906, she was president of the local Council of Women. That was an umbrella organization that represented the united membership of every local women's group. That included the Women's Christian Temperance Union, the YWCA, Cirrhosis, Cemetery Association, Unique Club, Wednesday Club, and many others. Any organization was welcome to belong to the council as long as its representative on the council was a woman. Goals were sanitation and hygiene, tree and flower planting, education, charity for the helpless, and the need for a public library. Maud's daughter, Beryl, was a co-founder of the Tri-Kappa sorority. Maud's main goal was to build a new hospital. Her group bought the Hopewell farm on the south edge of the city along Rogers Street for $6,000 after running a series of fundraising events. They refitted the existing two-story farmhouse as a hospital. Maud was in charge of the conversion and became the head of the new hospital board. With the exception of 1 year, she served as such until her death in 1936. In 1918, they decided to build a new purpose-built hospital building. And here we will pause for a brief look at the history of what, in the last few months, has become Bloomington's old hospital. Here, that 1918 purpose-built hospital building is located just to the south and slightly east of the old Hopewell homestead that had become the hospital in 1905. Now it had become a nurse's home. Not a nursing home, a nurse's home. And here are some pictures of that 1918 hospital. Then in 1947, a new hospital building was built just to the east of the 1918 building, and they were interconnected with passageways and rooms. And here's a picture of that 1947 hospital, and you can see behind it to the west the old 1918 hospital building and the nurse's home there to the right on the north side. That 1947 is the building that we were all accustomed to seeing when traveling along Rogers Street looking at the hospital. And here's a review to make sure everybody understands just what we were talking about. Then in the mid-1960s, just like Topsy, the hospital began to grow. The 1918 hospital building was torn down, and everything proceeded to grow to the west. But the 1947 hospital building was retained. Maud was the first member of the Board of Children's Guardians and Monroe County's first probation officer. A new sewer system was planned for the city, and William Showers traveled to Milwaukee, St. Paul, and St. Louis to study their sewer systems. I want to briefly explain how I use the Sanborn fire insurance maps in this presentation. They exist for the dates shown here and are invaluable in showing the history of the physical layout of the Showers factory. But they are only snapshots for a given year. These two show the campus in 1907 and 1913. Much construction went on between those dates, and I've had to extrapolate by cutting and pasting the maps and try to correlate with the historical record that Carrol documented. Sometimes I have made an educated guess to show how the campus looked in a given year. In 1907, the Showers brothers built the largest veneering plant in Indiana at the north end of their existing buildings. The three original buildings by then had become joined together to make one large building, surrounded by smaller buildings. In 1910, the corporate board of directors voted to massively enlarge their plant. The new building was dubbed Plant 1. This was the first of their buildings to use the sawtooth roof line. From that point on, the company was the company billed itself as the nation's largest. It is not known just what criteria was used to determine nation's largest. Was it square feet of factory, gross sales, employees, cubic volume of factory? We don't know. No official company document has been found that claimed it was the world's largest. But there is no doubt that if it wasn't the world's largest, it was at least in the top 2 or 3. And the company often unofficially claimed it as such, especially in their advertising. As we will see in a minute, the company displayed a sign to appear in a photograph of the plant proclaiming it the world's largest. And oh, by the way, there was a factory in England that also claimed itself to be the world's largest furniture factory. In 1911, the center of population of the United States was calculated from the 1910 census as being in Bloomington. It had been determined that it was about 6 miles east of town in Benton Township. But possibly influence was wielded, and the spot was identified by a marker placed on the Showers Company property. After the demise of the company, it was moved to the south side of the courthouse, where it can be seen today. Now there's the marker at the base of a flagpole on the Showers factory campus. And there you see the sign on the building advertising itself as the world's largest. And there's where we saw the last slide at the base of the flagpole. And that's what it looks like today on the south side of the courthouse for you to visit. By this time, William had turned over much of the running of the company to his son, W. Edward Showers. William's last major business decision was to substantially enlarge the company by building Plant 4 on the south side of Bloomington. We'll get to Plant 2 and 3 in a minute. This plant was to become RCA in 1940. It was dedicated to making kitchen cabinets, and by 1916, Showers was the second largest manufacturer of kitchen cabinets in the nation. Later, it was repurposed to make radio consoles. And that picture was taken about the time that RCA bought the factory. And comparing it with that rendition just before, it was a quite accurate rendition. Showers was the largest employer in town, but got scant support from the Democrat city administration. It waited 5 years after promising to pave Rogers Street that ran between the two factories. W. Edward Showers built himself a mansion on the southeast corner of 8th and Washington Street. It is now a bed and breakfast. And up the street, just away, was nearby the house that James Showers had John Nichols build for his daughter, Maud. This Maud is not to be confused with the Maud who was the widow of Hull Showers. That house has survived. In 1912, the company built a glass plant just south of the Showers buildings that would be known as the Nuhr Glass Factory. It was named after Joseph M. Nuhr, who shared ownership with the Showers. And there was his home, which obviously has not survived. It led the way in manufacturing free-hanging wall mirrors and eventually had over 8,000 accounts, including Gimbels, Bloomingdale's, and Wanamaker's. In addition to mirrors, it manufactured plate glass windows, car windshields, and more important to us Hoosiers, to the very first experimental glass basketball backboards. Alas for us, however, IU is not the first school to use a glass backboard. However, this is the first known photograph of the use of a glass backboard in the men's gymnasium at IU. The picture taken about 1916 or 17. Also in 1912, a large fire destroyed the sawmill. A sprinkler system saved the other buildings. In rebuilding, the factory was doubled in size, extending north from the existing building. By May 1914, the company was supplying 64% of its output to Sears. Plant 1 covered about 7 acres, and Plant 2 was almost as big. The plant was now along Rogers Street. Plant 1 had been built in 1910. Plant 2 and the Newer Glass Factory were built in 1912. The Dimension Mill, Plant 3, was built in 1915. A corporate office building was built in 1916. On its top floor was an auditorium that could accommodate 900 people. It was planned specifically to offer space for presentations, meetings, music and dances, silent films, and vaudeville. Shortly after that, a sample showroom and grocery were built across the street to the south. During World War I, employees could buy food from the company store cheaper than from city merchants. That 1915 office building has survived, facing Morton Street. For many years, it was the home of IU Press. It now is empty and awaiting restoration. There is the picture of the lobby to that office building when it was new. And that's what it looks like today. It should come as no surprise that a company that is in the business of working with wood would have a lot of beautiful wood paneling in its office. There is the 900-seat auditorium, which has not survived, for that stage was removed and the room dedicated to office space. My thanks to Tucker Gerald at Lauren Wood Builders for the pictures of the inside of the Showers office as it appears today. Their office is located in the old office of the Bloomington Limestone Company on South Walnut. And there is a picture of the showroom and grocery building that was built in 1916. We'll get later to when that laboratory was built just to the south in 1929. That is Morton Street that I'm standing in. This is a very accurate rendition of the appearance of the campus in 1926, showing the office building and the showroom gallery without the 1929 laboratory extension on its south. And you see Morton Street is running there. And if you recall, Rogers Street would be on the very far distance of this picture. This is a 1949 aerial view that shows the company at its maximum extent. And this shows the location of the lumber yard and explains the access that the Illinois Central Railroad had on the east side of the factory and the Monon Railroad on the west side of the factory. With the death of William in 1919, there was no longer an original founding brother involved in running the company. You gotta like that guy. In 1919, more than 1,000 men were employed. There were 17 acres of floor space and 24 million feet of lumber were being used per year. The Showers Brothers was one of the first furniture factories to hire women in 1917, but in 1921, like industries everywhere, they were all fired but the female clerical workers. It was industry's attempt to provide jobs for returning veterans, and it was encouraged by President Harding. I don't know how many women actually worked in the factory, but certainly this photograph shows at least 68 of them. They are on the west side, the back end of the office building. And I can never resist taking a then and now picture. Unfortunately, these years saw the easy availability of lumber in the Midwest coming to an end. William and James's trusted nephew and factory manager, Charles Sears, became president of the new country club. Sanford Teeter helped the members of the old commercial club organize as the new Chamber of Commerce. Teeter was its first president. The group lobbied successfully for the new Dixie Highway to come through Bloomington, now our Highway 37. He also served on the city council. The company built a baseball park and had a team as well as a boxing club, football team, and sponsored Boy Scout troop for employees' sons. There was a playground for the children of workers. W. Edward Showers' business philosophy emphasized continuous expansion, feeling that the company had to do so to survive. In retrospect, this was a questionable business model. The cost of lumber was skyrocketing, and it was becoming difficult even to find adequate quantities of wood. The Midwest was denuded, and the transportation costs of obtaining it from far afield were huge. There were no more Showers men on the city council. Showers built a plant in Burlington, Iowa in the early 1920s. This was a big mistake because it was an industrial town, and skilled workers proved difficult to find. They were all already employed. This was Plant 5, and it didn't help that it was built at a time of a sharp recession in the economy. There were ups and downs in the economy in the 1920s, and the company did not feel altogether too comfortable. In late 1921, all the foremen at Plant 4, remember, which became RCA, were fired. Quality supervisors were becoming hard to find. Management under W. Edward Showers seemed unable to adapt to the 20th century outlook of employees. Newer Glass established satellite plants in Burlington, Chattanooga, which later moved to Memphis and is still a going company, and Kansas City. In 1924, Nellie Showers Teeter was elected the first women's trustee at Indiana University. She was William's daughter and remained on its board for 21 years. And now you know the origin of Teeter Quad on the campus. In 1924, water problems for the city again came to a head, and the company threatened to move to another city if it was not solved. Probably this was a bluff. At one time, Indiana University made the same threat. The Showers factory was consuming 21 million gallons of water a year, of which only 5.6 million gallons came from the municipal water supply. The company claimed to be paying 1/7 of the city tax revenue. Leonard Springs was proving inadequate. It had been built in the mid-19-teens. The Showers Brothers Company joined together with the Citizens Loan and Trust, the Showers Brothers Savings Company, and the First National Bank, all of which were either owned or heavily influenced by the Showers family, in what amounted to a Republican water revolution. The banks and businessmen formed a new independent water company to build Griffey Reservoir. After 5 years, the company would revert to the city. The city finally began to cooperate. The Showers Company provided $181,500, or 1/4 of the $728,000 needed for the project. Individual Showers family members contributed, including James, who gave $5,000. Earlier, even as the city built Twin Lakes and Leonard Springs, the Showers brothers had insisted that Griffey Reservoir was the way to go. But the city didn't listen. Plant 6 was opened about this time in Bloomfield and proved the last major addition. In 1925 and 26, business was booming. In 1929, the company built a research laboratory on the campus to test new manufacturing methods. Sales grossed $10 million, the all-time peak for the company. There were problems, however. Wood for veneering had been imported by train from the Louisiana Delta as early as the 1910s. By 1929, wood was becoming ever more difficult to obtain. The sawmill was closed. The Showers Savings Bank was closed because the workers didn't trust it. They thought it was in business to help the company and not them. In 1928, Sanford Teeter died, and 3 weeks later, W. Edward Showers announced that he was stepping down as president. But he would continue as chairman of the Board of Trustees. Charles Sears died in 1928. He was the son of James and William's sister Sarah, and thus was unable to step in. Joseph M. Nuhr, the head of the Nuhr Glass Company, would now head both companies. This was the first time that a non-Showers family member would head the company. The gross sales of $10 million in 1929 went to $2 million in 1932. The Great Depression was taking its toll. Workers went from 1,300 in 1929 to 800 in 32. Hourly wages were cut from 48 cents to 22 cents. In 1932, W. Edward Showers came out of retirement to run the company, even though he was in ill health. He undid the corporate merger of Nuhr Glass and Showers, but he died in 1935. The family again reached outside the company, and Guy Burnett became president in 1935. The company discontinued its welfare department and its group insurance and health insurance plans. The company pension and welfare plans were ended. The company had launched the Showers Brothers Savings Bank in 1916, and a passbook was opened for each employee with $1. This was the inflation-adjusted outlay of $20,000 by the company. In 1920, the bank was dissolved, and the accounts were transferred to the Citizens Loan and Trust. RCA bought Plant 4 in 1940 and paid employees better. By 1950, RCA employed 3,000, while Showers employed 500. In 1940, the workers accused the company of maintaining 2 sets of books, one fraudulently showing the company not making a profit. By then, the factory was hopelessly obsolete and an unpleasant place in which to work. There was far more efficient competition from furniture factories elsewhere. James Showers died in 1937 at the age of 97. He had not been involved with the company for 35 years. With the death of Edward Showers, the business smarts of the family seemed to be exhausted. And I would question how much business smarts W. Edward Showers had. Ownership now rested in the hands of Showers' women, who owned the majority of company stock but who lacked business experience. Their understandable reluctance to spend large sums of money during tight times had unfortunate results. The price of Showers' furniture was being undercut by Southern manufacturers who could make the same product for less money. Lumber was closer to them, and labor was cheaper. You knew the end was near when retail furniture stores in Bloomington were buying their furniture from Southern factories. Walkouts began in 1935, and labor unrest disrupted the company every year or so from then on. In the early 1940s, the plants in Bloomfield and Burlington were sold off. Guy Burnett retired in 1952 and was replaced by Robert Dillon. Herman Wells joined the board in 1953. He directed his efforts towards selling the company. Dillon was yet another Showers son-in-law, having married a daughter of W. Edward Showers. He sold the company in 1955 to Stork Line Furniture Company of Chicago. The board of directors dissolved the corporation, and 3 years later, after a strike, closed the plant. Stork Line closed it for good. That would have been in 1958. After Earl Showers' death in 1940, there were no Showers men left, and the family surname disappeared. There were many indications that the company's decline was already in place before the crash in 1929. It had spent enormous amounts of money during the 1910s and 20s. It had enlarged too far and was significantly overextended. Separate factories in separate cities required excellent overseers that the company lacked. Workers in other cities had no sense of belonging to a shared common community. In 1929, the average wage of a Showers worker was $1,211 a year, while the state average was $1,088 per year. But the average furniture worker in Georgia that year made $791 per year. Damaging economic factors during the 1920s were price cutting due to increased competition, price reductions demanded by large chains, demands for new patterns each year to match consumer expectations, increased use of metal and plastic in furniture construction, a tendency towards smaller houses that required less furniture, local lumber largely depleted, and new factories in the South. The cost of importing lumber from outside of the Midwest becoming astronomical. Because the company had specialized in manufacturing inexpensive, affordable furniture, it could not cut costs anymore without injuring its own profitability. Annual earnings figures are not available before 1925. Here, Showers' family heads of the company are in red, and the circled is the maximum year in the history of the Showers Company, 1929. We must remember that although there may have been the normal ups and downs of the business cycle, especially in the Depression of 1893, as long as William and James ran the company, especially William in the later years, it was extremely successful. Later Showers administrations were unable to deal with the complex challenges. With each passing generation, the overall company vision became much more diluted, and the administration became more isolated from its workforce and more harassed by outside changes in the American economy. At some point, according to Carrol, the Showers Company donated land to the city that became Showers Miller Park. The website for the park indicated that the city paid $1 for it, but obviously, from the name, Showers had some connection with it. I trust Carrol and think the city should rewrite their website. In 1966, there were 2 fires on the campus. Part of Plant 1, which had existed all the way to 10th Street, burned, and the second fire destroyed all of Plant 2. Remaining portions of Plant 1 were sold to the city for a city hall, representing slightly less than 1/2 of the original campus's square footage. And here we have a comparison of the 1949 aerial showing the maximum construction there on the plant, and a Google image showing the same thing. All the circles indicate buildings that have survived. It is striking that there seem to be very few photographs of the Showers factory that have survived. And this is one, a very nice one. Fortunately, one can stand on that spot and have a wonderful then and now figure. Up at the very north end, old Plant 3, the dimension mill, is now a private enterprise called The Mill, whatever that is. You folks in Bloomington will know more about that, I guess, than I do. And this is a review of what we have indicated before of the use of the surviving buildings. Between 1910 and 1930, the Showers Furniture Factory was Bloomington's largest employer with more than 2,000 employees at its various locations. It is fairly possible that at the time plants 1 and 2 were built in 1910 and 1913 and continuing into the 1920s, the factory was quite likely the nation's largest furniture factory and possibly the world's. The role of the Showers men and women in nearly all aspects of the Bloomington community was truly mind-boggling. Among other achievements, their involvement in obtaining a railroad, roads, electricity, telephones, a municipal sewer system, and the all-important water supply shows the tremendous importance of the Showers family in building the infrastructure of the city of Bloomington. From affordable housing to the hospital and library, they were involved in quality of life issues. Today, I've only touched on their many contributions. That is not to say that other people were not involved, but so often the Showers were serving in leadership positions. For a more thorough understanding of this unique family, I heartily recommend Carrol Krause's wonderful book. It goes far in reestablishing the Showers family in our collective memory and confirms our lasting debt of gratitude to them. And now I will be happy to play the ever-popular game, Stump the Speaker. Yeah.
Why is the pattern of the red deals on the roof? Why did they develop that?
Because it provides the maximum extent of sunlight to the interior spaces. If you stop and think, how can you put that much glass in a roof in that era? Anybody else?
I thought it was supposed to look like
No. They went north. They were on the north side. The glass faced north. Yeah. You will find photograph studios throughout the 19th century, in order to obtain the best lighting, as best they could, always had their big glass windows north, on the north side. I've never understood that either, but that's the case. Sir? Presumably so. I don't know for sure. Any more? Mike?
One time, the most they hired there was over 2,000.
Yes, yes, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you were referring to the glass company. Thank you for helping me. I'm glad you knew I was I'm always referring to research.
I said Nur Glass Company. She said she had always heard Nuri. There is no accent mark, funny little mark above the E in the company's name, as we saw in the advertisement. When I went to Google and said, how do you pronounce this? Google said Nur. That doesn't make it right. I assumed that because there is the company still in business today, that it might be a little more authoritative than if it was, a company back in history. But to answer your question, I don't know. You're not the first person who said, well, I always heard Nuri. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for highlighting how they decimated hardwoods in the state and Midwest. I'm so happy, because I've read the book, and it's fabulous. But also the role of women in the community. A fun fact is that there used to be latrines on the courthouse square. When the women came in and said, that's unacceptable, it's hard to imagine latrines on the courthouse square, and no trees planted either. You were right.
Yeah. Way back. Sir.
I heard that the Showers Company owned lumber in the Morse Creek bottom.
I'm sorry, you had to speak louder.
I've heard that they owned a lot of lumber acreage in the Morse Creek bottom for their own use. Is there any documentation that they actually bought woods for use?
Showers owns scads of land for forest to deforest for lumber for the place, and not only that, bought the land off bought the trees off other people's land. This was when you're on the largest furniture factory in the world, give or take, you're going to consume extraordinary amounts of lumber. Any questions, sir?
Yeah, the marker on the courthouse of the center of population,
Yes.
1910. That wasn't the center. The center was in the woods out to the west of town, but no one goes there, so they put the marker on the courthouse square.
Yes.
But the actual center is.
Yes, I explained how the spot should be in Benton Township, but it was originally put on the Showers factory property, and only moved to where it is now when the factory went defunct. Sir?
I wonder how valuable original Showers furniture is. Does anybody?
I have no idea.
Does anybody own a piece of Showers furniture?
I do.
Are they worth quite a bit? They were built simple. But were they built simple?
I heard they weren't that valuable.
Any more questions? Seeing no more questions, thank you very much.